Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to start in a few minutes. I got the chat open. I only have one screen today, which is a little bit of a bummer. So I'm going to have to kind of switch back and forth to the chat. But if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in that. And yeah, should be fun. I'm going to just kind of make sure I got everything set up that I need to get set up. I'm going to start in 4 minutes if you're tuning in. Oh shoot, I put 12:30 on this thing. That sucks. Oh well. Let's make sure this is working. Perfect. Okay, we'll start in 3 minutes. Let's see, my mic's working. Perfect. Face is all stretched. Looks funny. All right. Let's see if we can change that. I hope that my connection stays up. I'm tethering off my phone, so we'll see how that works. All right, 2 minutes. Get some water. I think they might be going a little bit late downstairs, unfortunately. It'll be all right. I'm just going to kind of repeat some things that we already know anyway. All right, we'll start in just a couple seconds. Using a pillow to clean off my camera. Hopefully that did something. All right, it's 12 o'clock. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm super excited to do a live stream about hooks. I'm in a different kind of setup today. I'm just on my laptop. Usually I have my screen and a mic and everything. So hopefully everything is coming through. I know that I'm kind of not broadcasting the very top of this window. So I apologize for that or what you might be missing there. I'll try to dictate things if I change the URL or anything. So just a couple hours ago, the React team announced React hooks, and they're super freaking cool. My understanding is that they're just a way to extend the capabilities of function components. I've kind of been referring to them as mixins for function components because they solve one of the core problems that mixins did solve, which was sharing life functionality across components. And this is just really exciting to see, especially in the function component space. I know for a long time, people have been talking about trying to figure out what the ergonomics and kind of how around and like how a stateful function component might work. Now, well, this isn't like a stateful function component. It kind of uses all of the new things in React to be able to provide these hooks into what React is, what React's doing. So it can kind of like come back and fulfill all of these life cycles without you as the developer having to think about the life cycles of the component and then respond to those. So you're like, component did mount, I want to do this. Component did update, I want to do this. Component will unmount, I want to do this. Oftentimes those things are part of the same logical thing. And if you have, like, if you're adding a subscription or subscribing to something, like a stream channel, you set it up in component did mount, and then you tear it down in component will unmount. But then also you might have other things that are split there too. So you might have some, you're getting some state using like connect or something like that, and that's not, so I'm getting some tweets. Okay, cool. So yeah, so that's the, so that's kind of the idea, is that now instead of having those things being separated by methods, now they're being put into these hooks, which allows us to kind of think about those in a single idea, like setup. So in the case of use effect, setup, tear down, and then optimization is all going to happen in this one isolated chunk of code, which is really awesome. So I just thought that we would kind of explore that for a second. Just kind of, I have about, I'm recording a podcast at 1 o'clock, so I'm probably gonna have to be out of here by like 12:40. But I mostly wanted to show you how to get started with hooks, the resources that you need to be aware of and visit with hooks, and just kind of play around with them so you could see a little bit more code motion and whatnot. Cool. So first thing is, and I'll pull this down just so you can see it. First thing is that if you want to get to the new docs on this, you can go to reactjs.org. Oops, sorry, and add hooks. So that hooks will take you to wherever the docs are, which is a nice little handy URL to use. Here they have an introduction to hooks. And all of these subsections. Now, what we'll go over is that first, this is only in this 16.7.0 alpha. So we're going to have to set up our sandbox environments and apps in a very specific way. Okay. Sorry, let me get back to a message real quick. You go to React hooks and it's just my podcast guest. Actually, no, I'll do it. I'll do it later. So we have, let's see. So we have this document. It's only 16.7, and we have these 8 categories, right? So introduction to hooks, hooks at a glance, using a state hook, using the effect hook, rules for hooks, custom hooks, and hooks API reference. Now, there's a lot of hooks APIs that were not mentioned or demonstrated today, and we'll talk about that in probably later. These are like the biggies. These are the and butter hooks, and these are a little bit more like specializations. So I'm just going to kind of go through these 3 today. Now, so how does that, what do we need to do to set things up? So let me show you this code sandbox that I set up. Now, it's already set up with hooks, so I'm going to demonstrate that. We're going to pull use state off of that named export, and say let's do a counter. Counters are always, actually, let's just add a piece of state. So name, use state, fantastic. And then we'll use name directly. Cool, so that worked. I can change this to whatever. Okay, so this is our default value for this piece of data hidden in here in the next place in that array. But I want to show you how to set up first. So here's the setup. If I go in here into the dependencies of my code bin, you'll see it might be kind of hard to see contrast-wise, but I'm using 16.7.0-alpha.0. It's also available at the flag next. So if you wanted to npm install this, you would go npm install react at next and react dom at next. That would get you React and React dom. Now I'm doing this in a sandbox, so a code sandbox. So this, so we add the dependencies here. Sometimes these dependencies can be a little bit finicky, so I found that I actually have to, I'll just do it. I had to delete both of them for them to update appropriately. So React, and then kind of like switch off of it. I mean, if you really want to be sure, I've had some like weird errors with these. So I switched off and switched back on, and now I have the right dependency there. And then if I do React DOM, now this might not be a problem for you. It might just be like my browser version or whatever, but you just want to make sure that you actually have the right versions set up here, because you could be really frustrated trying to import these things and use them and find out that they're not there. So just make sure that they're there. Cool. So we have that set up now. We're using use state right now, and this is the easiest one to start with. So let's play around a little bit. So we have we're spitting out our name. Let's start with something a little bit easier, and we'll do kind of that classic click counter. So we're going to spit out our count. Okay. Let's make that bigger. That's not going to work. Font size equals, I don't know, 32. Okay. Now we want to update this count, and use state comes along with this really cool thing. So something that you might not be familiar with is this object or array destructuring. You've probably seen object destructuring a lot. This is kind of the same thing, but with arrays. So the way that works is if we were to, I won't make that go away. So if we were to set up an array with a literal syntax, we could say, so like let use state equal, and this is gonna get pissed for a second, but we could set it to an array, and we could give it a value, like an initial value of 0, and we could have this like updater function, right? I'm gonna put an underscore in front of this so it doesn't get confused. Okay, so we can set that. We can set that here. So we're returning this. So we're creating a literal array with a value and a function inside of it. And this function doesn't do anything. And then when we want to use those, we can then get those values off of that. So that destructuring is just kind of the opposite of whatever setup that you needed to do. So we have, let's see. So we would have our value and our updater from use state. Okay. So it's just the opposite of setting up these literals. So we use this array syntax to set up a literal, and then we can use this array syntax to destructure something that we know has this shape of an array. And that's all that we're doing here. We know that the first value is going to be the value, the initial value, and then that kind of updating value in state. And the second one is going to be our updater, right? And and it's nice to kind of think about these as actions. So the convention here is to say update count. And you'll see that kind of verbally makes sense as we start constructing this, this component. So let's see. So we have that using our array destructuring. And then we have this update count. We're not using it yet. So let's do that. Let's add a button, type button, and we'll just do increment. Let's put a hand there. Point up, not the middle finger, come on. Can I do that? Yeah, okay, cool. So we have this increment button. Now I am pressing this, nothing's happening. That's to be expected because we don't have any, we're not handling that. So let's handle that, just handle it in line, right? So we'll do on click. We'll give it a function and we will call update count. Now, if you're used to set state, in set state we've had to kind of take the previous value, so it would look like this, previous value, and then we would use that to then return, previous dot count plus 1. Here we don't, with hooks we don't have to do that, which is awesome. We can just say, man, why did I delete all that character by character? I don't know. We can just say plus 1 because we're setting the account, in function we're getting that value, and we're just going to add to it. So anonymous function, we call update count, say update the count with the count plus 1. And there we go. Super easy. Okay, so yeah, so that's what we got so far. Easy peasy. We import use state. We use array destructuring to take the count and the updater function from there. We set an initial value. Now we can set this to whatever, right? Like it doesn't have to be 0. We can increment that. Very cool. Yeah, so why don't we, let's try, yeah, okay, so that's that's good for that. Okay, so let's look at the next kind of like big workhorse, which is use effect. So I'm like not sure how much time I want to spend on each one, just because I got places to be, people waiting on me. So let's use effect. Let's come up with another example. So the example that they used on stage today, and the one that I like, might not actually work in Code Sandbox. So let's give it a try. So the use effect is just called. So we're not pulling any values from use effect like we were with use state. Okay. Let's see if it works first. So the example that we saw was we give use effect a function to execute when this component renders, and every time that it renders. And in this we kind of just do whatever work that we need to do. So document.title is React hooks. Oh wait, that is the title that I have. Hi there. I'm not sure that this is going to jump through the Code Sandbox there. Okay, so that's not going to work. What's another? Let's see. Let's go to the docs. Let's see if they have an example here that we can look through that is not the one that we had. Okay, so this is setting up some kind of subscription. We don't have a subscription to subscribe to. Okay, so nothing there. Let's do something. Let's do something else. I have an idea. Okay, so let's see. Hi there. Okay. let's see. How do we use? I'm curious. How can we just like send values to the body element? I'm gonna have to look this up because I never actually like place values right on an element. So let's see. So MDN style style JavaScript. I think you can just do like style dot whatever equals the thing. Okay. Color blue. Style equals color blue. Okay. I'm going to assume that there's no styles on there. Color red. Okay, cool. Awesome. So this effect worked. Hey, I'm actually good right now. Yeah, thanks. Will you be able to come back in like an hour? Yeah, thanks. Okay, sorry about that. So we have, okay, so what we're doing is that when this component renders, when we render our app, we're using useEffect, we're giving it this function, and we're adding this style to the document body, which is awesome. And you can see it take effect. We have it right over here. Let me make this bigger. Okay, now what we can do, so that works, great. Hooray, effects are awesome. Now, there are other things that we need to know about effects in order to use them correctly. So here is the first thing. So first of all, this fires every time this component renders, and I'll prove that to you. So I'll console.log updating body styles. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, okay. So it only rendered once, so we need to kind of give ourselves an example that's going to do this. So we can create a function here called render. Let's see, let's call render. Okay, perfect. And then what we want to do is we want to set interval and call render every 500 milliseconds. Okay. Now we should start. Oh. If you're tracking along, oh, duh. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Okay, so now we are seeing that this is rendering every time, and every time we are redoing this work. So that is that's not ideal. So there's a little thing in here that you can do. The second argument of useEffect allows you to track a value, right? So let's see. Let's say, so I don't have this kind of like extracted into a component yet. So let's say that we only. Okay, let's do this. Let's call this greeting with color shift. Okay. Okay. So every time this greeting renders, we want to shift the color. And then we're going to need some kind of like value to track. So props, and we'll use props.name. Which means that we'll have to pass in a name. Okay, cool. So, so we're seeing this is updating every 500 milliseconds. But now that we have a value to track, we can say that unless the name changes, I don't. Oh, no more of those. Do not disturb. Okay, so unless the name changes, I only want you to render the minimum number of times that you have to. So I only want to track these inputs, and when they change, do the work again. But if they don't change, like do nothing. So we can track in here. We give it an array, and we give it some values to track. So this is going to be props.name. Oh my gosh! Obviously, I just don't understand what I'm doing. Oh, because I'm re-rendering this component every time. Okay, well let's wrap it in an app. This is what these things are about. We're just kind of like exploring, feeling it out, see what's going on. You know, like bump into the walls, make some mistakes. Okay, so we'll do, sorry, now I'm all flustered. Return div, could use a fragment probably. Greeting with color shift. Again, this is not like idiomatic at all. I'm just figuring this stuff out as we go along. So then we want to update our app instead. No. All right, so I don't have any idea what this is doing. So name. Okay, so we're re-rendering our app every time. Now these are the inputs. So let's look at the docs here and see what I am missing, because obviously I missed some core part of how this is supposed to be working. So let's do it. Additional hooks. We don't need additional hooks. Hooks at a glance, state hook, the effect hook. Okay, so let's kind of like go through this piece by piece. So use effect, document.title. We can't use that because we're in the sandbox environment. Bummer, I know. Systems is based on the counterexample, data fetching, setting the subscription, any manual changing the DOM. It's interesting that they put this here because data fetching would be more the realm of suspense, or like that would be like the natural reach for that. But maybe just kind of like in terms of if you're going to do it without suspense, the way that we have been doing it all this time. So just run additional code. Okay, so this is talking about the cleanup. Maybe we need to focus on cleanup first. Use effect. Doing it right. Okay, cool. All this is looking right so far. Okay, let's focus on cleanup first, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to take this out for now. Okay, sorry, I thought the document title thing would work, and I didn't have a second thing set up. I'm going to remove this root element. Okay, cool. Now, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to inspect this iframe, but we're gonna try it anyway. So I want to render this, see that the document body was set to have that red value, which it does. Let's close this up a little bit. Okay, and then I want to unmount mount node at, I believe is the API, and the root element. Unmount, not unmount, man. Unmount component at node, I think it is. Unmount. Obviously, this is not one that I use a lot. Component at node. Okay, cool, perfect. So we saw it go in and we saw it disappear. Unfortunately, we see here that this is still red. So it did the work and then didn't clean up after itself. So that's a bummer. So we're doing the work, but how do we get it to clean up after itself? Well, we can return another function and return another function that does the opposite of whatever we wanted. So document body.style, and I think we can just give it null here. So like take that off. Man, everything I'm doing is failing today. Document body.style. See, we're returning a function. Give it a block just in case. I think I have some old code because this is logging out updating body style, even though this is not, I'm not logging that out anymore, and I'm not re-rendering it. Something funky is happening. Okay, this is what I expected to see. So I just needed to refresh that. So what I expected to see now is that now we're setting that to null. So if I didn't do any of this work at all, that would not, we wouldn't see that style attribute in there at all. So let's refresh that. Obviously there's something crazy going on. Oh my gosh. I think a bunch of people just like jumped on the internet or something. Oh, okay, wait. So if I don't do that work, okay, yeah. So let's see. Pissed. Obviously, it's a different iframe. So yeah. So like I was saying, it's kind of a little bit tricky to like do these types of inspections kind of on these iframes. Split view iframe. I can't find it. Anyway, trust me. So when it says style equals, that's because we were resetting it. So that is working. I wondered now if I can track that value, and I wonder if it was just kind of an updating error. Props.name. That's what I'm using, right? Yeah, props.name. So as long as that doesn't change, okay, so it is red. Great. We know that it is being removed. So let's see if we can set this back up again. We don't need that. We just need. Okay. Now we need to add our console log statement again. We know that the red's going in there. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, so this time we got 2, so I'm not sure if that's because, I'm not sure why, but it is not continually updating. So we can kind of see, verify that that this component keeps rendering. Yeah, there's some like kind of like funky reloading thing going on with these log statements. So yeah, so the component component rendered, that thing happened, and then even though the component is re-rendering every 500 seconds, 500 milliseconds, we're not getting this body updating style function being called every 500 milliseconds. So that is working. I'm not sure why it was weird a second ago. So yeah, so that second argument is what we do for that. So kind of in summary, so the 3 parts of useEffect are going to be the work that we want to do. That's the first thing. We return a function that does the cleanup work for whatever we want to do, and then that second argument after our function that has both the setup and teardown is what we let's see, is the inputs that we want to track when something changes. So by default, it's going to just be every render. So, and then you kind of opt out of the every render behavior by giving it an array of values that you want to track. So let's see. So that is, those are kind of the major workings of useEffect. It's 12:30. I got a couple minutes left, so I thought I would dive into the other one, which is useContext, or the other kind of bread and butter one, which is useContext. So let's delete that, and let's see. So how would we set this up? So span hi. Okay, so we have this. Obviously, all that other stuff is still in the way. Let's delete this. We don't need any of that anymore. Refresh that because it's stuck. Okay, cool. We got what we need from that. So, hi there. We want to use context. Now, in order to use context, we need to create context. So we'll pull up create context. I haven't looked at this in a while, so we'll see how this works. We're going to create a context outside of our app here, so we'll call this theme context, and we'll use create context to do that, and give it let's give it a text value of fuchsia. I think that's how you spell it. Now, if we want to consume that context, there's a way right now where you can like pull render props off of this this returned object thing. So now we're not going to do that. We want to be able to use the use context, which allows us to do it here. So let's track that. So how let's see, how does it work? Let's go to the docs here. I don't see it in this list, so we'll I'm assuming that it's going to be in API reference. Use context. So we'll say context equals use context of context. So my assumption is that we say let theme equals use context of theme context. Now this object, which we used as our default value, is here. I have that available to me here. So style color theme dot text. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! That's awesome. So that worked. We can change this to green. Amazing, amazing. Purple. That's not going to be too much different from black there. Come on. Oh, purple. Okay, sweet. So this works amazingly. I got a couple minutes. Let's try something else. So that's use context. Pretty straightforward there. So I'm going to use state and use. Oh wait, let's see. Can I do this? I don't know if I can do this one in Code Sandbox. No, I don't think I can. Okay, so maybe that's it for today. Use. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I was gonna do like an online offline example and track the state using use state, but I don't know how to simulate offline in this Code Sandbox in a way that wouldn't actually take me offline from streaming. So maybe I'll just do that as a video. Okay, cool. So I'm going to wrap up then. 12:35. We've been doing this for about 35 minutes, and I have a call that I need to get to. So what are the things that we need to take away? So first, if you go to react.js.org/hooks, this is going to be all the documentation. Read this from top to bottom. Like, it's not that much. Read the whole thing. You're going to learn a lot, and then play with it as you're going through it. So like when you get to here, run this example. Now remember, if you want to run that in a Code Sandbox, you have to go through here, change the dependencies. make sure that you're on the 16.7.0-alpha.0 release of both React and React DOM. If you got that, you should be good to go. Now, some of the examples you might not be able to track with, so this is something that's important to know. You're not going to be able to track with, what is it, use effect. Some of these effects, the demos are like document.title. You're not going to be able to do that in the Code Sandbox environment. So that's kind of a bummer. You will be able to play with online, offline, so you can do that. But just be aware that not all of these are going to work in the Code Sandbox. So you might have to start your own, like use a Create React app, etc., and do that. So so that is kind of the caveat number one. After that, we just kind of like went through the examples that they had here for use state, use effect, use context. You can play with the other ones. Use if you go to this API reference. Anyway, we'll cover some of those at a later time. I'm probably going to track this a lot because this is really important to me as someone who makes tools for our designers. I think this is going to be just a real hit. I am going to continue to write. I added a page on React Patterns. I don't know if you've been to reactpatterns.com in a while. I'm working on updating it, but I'm also working on a little thing for hooks. This is a little bit more like narrative, kind of walking through some examples, just kind of from my perspective. It might be valuable to you. It might not. This is really kind of like just the tip of the iceberg. So if you find the docs overwhelming and want just kind of like a more like narrative style, this is where I'm tracking that. So reactpatterns.com/hooks, and I'll link that from the page eventually. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to be tracking this all week. So if you want to like subscribe, you'll get notifications. I think. I don't know how YouTube works. You can follow me on Twitter if you have any questions. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching. I hope that this kind of seeing this and like bumping into the edges a little bit was helpful. This is new for me, but I'm super excited about it. It's super promising. So yeah, thanks for watching.